Hello and welcome to Cleveland Skateboarding Storytellers. I am your host, Christian Svitak, and today we have a very special guest that means a lot to me. He's actually one of my first skateboard friends when I started skateboarding in Garfield Heights in 1988. Welcome, Dan Santoven. Hey, Dan.
Hello, Christian. Good to be here.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah,
So how's it going?
doing good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Living here in Arizona. Been here in right outside of Phoenix and Mesa for ooh, 13 years now. Or no, I came here in 2011, basically. So whatever that is,
yeah,
12 years, something like that.
yeah, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people out here that are watching or listening to this that they do know who you are. And I'm sure there's plenty of people on here that aren't familiar. But for all of you that aren't familiar, and this is also good because it's going to refresh my my memory and your memory of your resume here, and it's pretty darn long. So I wanted to read. I did a post on you on the if anyone's on the
Right.
Cleveland Skateboarding Instagram. I wrote a story about Dan here. So I'll just start this off, and I think it's a great way to get it rolling here. So, born in 1971. So, are you 54?
53. I'll be 54 in August.
Dang, all right. Heading on
Yeah,
54. Started
yeah.
skateboarding in 87, 88, somewhere in there.
Yeah, the my first Thrasher that I bought was the Scott Oster G-turn one with the tuck knee.
Yeah.
And I think I looked that up and it was like June 87 was the month on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
right around that area. And I had just started skating when I bought that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it says here, I wrote, Garfield Heights strikes again. I've known Dan since before I even started skating. Back when I was just a little kid with a mullet and listening to the popular heavy metal of the 80s, Dan was one of the first people in my neighborhood that was dressing the punk rock fashion. I didn't even know what that was at the time. By 1988, I was skating and Dan was the older Garfield skater slash punker that took me under his wing. He and his older brother Dave drove me all over to skate and took me to many Cleveland punk shows. In 1989, he started the Garfield Skateboard Club. I can't wait to get into that.
Oh
Just so we
gosh.
could skate the banks in the basement of the high school. In the mid 90s, he lived at and ran the DIY music venue Speakin' Tongues on Lorraine Avenue. He booked many unknown bands that would go on to be big names, such as Modest Mouse and many more. After I moved to and got things rolling in California in 1998, and then Dave Smith, Garfield Heights skateboarder, moved in with me in 1999, we got Dan to move in with us in 2002. Soon after, Dan's journey would accelerate. He went on to, here's the laundry list, and there's probably stuff I didn't even get all in here.
It's
Worked
okay.
for Vans as the first core retail marketer and grassroots events. Territory was San Diego County, LA County, Riverside County, San Luis Obispo, Arizona, Utah, and Hawaii. Then you worked for Audio Footwear, national retail merchandiser and marketing. You did sales with Tomieto, Stereo Skateboards, Elwood, and Audio Footwear. Did stuff with the Tony Hawk Foundation, Skateboard Project, 8 fundraising events as an events manager. 2 Birdhouse summer tours, East Coast and West Coast, on-site marketing. Protec team manager. 2013 to 2019 outdoors skills instructor for Skate Wild at the Visalia YMCA Skate Camp. 2021 Skate Camp and Youth Camp Overlord at YMCA Skate Camp. And then I went on to write, I have a feeling he isn't done contributing to the skateboarding slash music subculture. He currently lives in Arizona and still leads a creative life. Anyone that knows him knows what a sweet guy he is. Always friendly, always giving. An absolute treasure straight from Turney Road.
There you go.
That was pretty
Thank you.
good.
Wow, yeah, that was good. That's good.
Yeah. Well,
Are we done? Are we done then? No, I'm kidding.
yeah, we're done. We're done. You guys
Yeah,
got it
that's
all.
it. That's it. Yeah.
So yeah,
How
going
far do
over.
you want to go back? Let's go back.
Yeah, I want to go back to the start to frame this up for everybody. I remember you were more of my older brother's age, and
Yeah.
I remember seeing you. I don't know, somewhere. I saw you, and this is prior to me finding skateboarding and punk rock. And I just
Oh,
remember you.
wow.
Yeah, I was still had the mullet going and whatever. And I remember you had this look going, and I didn't know what it was. It didn't compute to me. But you were starting your journey into underground music and skateboarding and all that. And then it was a year later, in the summer of '88, I had just started skating. And I think it was like within the first week of me skating, I went down to Nick Romano's house on East 84th, East 85th in Garfield Heights,
Okay.
and went to go hang out with Nick. And you rolled up with Marcus, his older brother, Marcus Romano.
Right.
And you guys just came back from a skate shop, and he had a Tony Hawk and you had a Nodus. And I
Yeah.
remember that was our connection. And I remember you were kind of tripping out because you're like, you remembered me as like my older brother's little brother with a mullet wearing Kiss t-shirts and riding a BMX bike. And all of a
Right.
sudden, like I had like the bangs going and half my head shaved, and
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
full.
You had a good style. You had like you had the mixed squeeb, the mixed they call it
Yeah.
the mixed squeeb, like the Tony Hawk cut.
Yes.
You had on a green army jacket.
Yes.
You may have even, I don't remember if you had a patch on the back, but you may have had an exploited or something on the back at that point,
Many
or
stickers on the back.
something like that. And then
Yeah.
I believe you're more than likely wearing Converse.
Oh, for sure.
You know, yeah, you were definitely like, um, yeah, you got to, yeah, it was funny because yeah, I remember that day totally because we had just come back from BJ's bike shop in Berea,
All right.
and that's because I remember Marcus and I had talked about like what boards we were going to get forever, and you'd go through, look at the Thrasher and you look at like the CCS or Skate on Hate or whatever the ads were in the back, Snoot
Yeah.
Hill, and just being like, dude, I was in love with that Nodus board. Like, it was actually my second board, but I just like fixated on that board. So I bought that Nodus with the Panther, and Marcus bought the Tony Hawk,
Yeah.
and we were trying to do ollie stalls on the curbs in front of Marcus's house.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember you just tripping out like, "Wait, what? You skateboard?" And,
yeah,
because the last time you saw me, I was, a 12-year-old kid listening to Kiss, you know what I mean?
well, and I kind of felt like you already had some stuff going on because was Team Insanity already a thing
Yeah.
back then?
Well, that's how I
Yeah,
started, was Team Insanity. Those guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that was like, yeah, so you had already kind of like had like this whole thing kind of going on. So that was, coming from a town where, it wasn't uncommon to be not just verbally threatened, but physically threatened for being different, you know, to go out on that limb and like take on a different style than what was like, 80s rocker or whatever,
Yeah.
uh, was pretty brave,
Yeah.
for anybody that did it. It was definitely like a different time. Skaters weren't adulated back then. They weren't like the people weren't all excited about us skating
Yeah. Right.
at
Well,
all. But I remember. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, what got you into it?
So that's a good question. My family is Mormon, and so we had a lot of missionaries come to our house all the time to hang out because we were kind of like the only Mormon family in Garfield Heights, except for I think Heidi Bindis' family. And so there was a missionary from Escondido, and I had no idea where Escondido was at the time. I didn't the word, it was like whatever. But he always talked about skating, and he was like, and he had brought his board on his mission, and he had brought it to our house the one day, and was just doing some like tic tacs and stuff out front, and I was pretty much like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then he was told by one of his church leaders that he couldn't have the skateboard and he had to sell it.
Oh man.
And so we worked it out that I would buy his board for $35, and it was a Mark Gonzalez Vision with slime balls, tracker trucks. I think they were slime balls or blurs. I can't remember exactly. But yeah, so that was the first board I bought, was from him. And I really didn't know what I was doing. But then I remember going to see the Circle Jerks down at Peabody's.
Well, wait, back that. How would you even known to go see the Circle Jerks?
So I had gotten into there was twin brothers at my church that liked like punk rock and new wave, and I had already kind of started like walking into that space because of like Cleveland State Radio, WCSB, and stuff like that. And so I was like kind of like I liked like new wave light. So like I knew about Howard Jones and Depeche Mode and a little bit of New Order, but I was like everything was so new. Like the Smiths and the Cure, like, you know, were like a big deal. At least I felt it like at the time. And so I was like kind of walking into that space, and then these two brothers, they were like light years ahead, and they had like tons of cassettes, and it was just straight up like, here you go, listen to this. So every time we hung out with them, they'd always play something new, and that's where I found like the Ramones, the Circle Jerks. They weren't so much into punk past that, but they liked like a lot of like the more gothy new wave stuff. But then, you know, and then you just start kind of figuring stuff out. You hear stuff on the college radio station, and that kind of piques your curiosity. But to me at that time, I'd say, like you said, like I had this look going, and like the thing I remember the most from that time in high school was like there's that one picture of Robert Smith, and he's standing there. It's like a side profile, and he's holding his guitar, almost like a gun. He's got the hair. So I was like trying to do the hair, trying to like kind of just dress like a grandma, like eventually like what Kurt Cobain would dress like, but wearing a grandma sweater, a button shirt, a pair of old jeans, or like some type of like work pants or whatever, if I was lucky enough to find some, you know, secondhand boots or whatever. But, you know, all this was new. Thrift stores, college radio, punk rock shows was all like came in this kind of big bundle of things. And so going to that Circle Jerk show, I just remember we're standing out front waiting to get into the club, and if you know the club, so like the club's on the main street, then behind it there's another road that runs off on the hill behind it, then a hill that comes down the back.
Wait, what club was it?
That Peabody's in the flats. Yeah. And I just remember hearing this crazy rolling noise, like it even got louder and louder and louder, and like 4 or 5 skaters came barreling down the street, and it was like like 1 or 2 of them ollied. I think one of them even kick flipped, and I was just like, "You can do that?" I was like, "I'm in. Like, count me in." That won me over. To this day, I still don't even know who those guys were. Wow. Have no idea.
It'd be cool if someone's watching this right now, you know, and
said, "Yeah, that was
in the comments." Like, I was there. Me and my buddies, we skated up to that show. You know.
Yeah.
You might find out. You might find out.
I hope so. Yeah. So at that moment, like I knew that's like everything about it. It was more than just the skating was definitely a big part of it, but the whole aesthetic. You know, there was just like this whole new world had kind of opened up. Like I said, like the fashion, the music, skateboarding obviously being a big part of that, kind of like the connector and all that. And so that really just sealed the deal for me, to be like, this is what I want to be. I want to be a skater. Yeah. You know? So, yeah.
So your older brother Dave used to skate with us too. Did he get into it at the same time you did, or did he kind of follow your lead, or?
He definitely followed my lead. You know, like pretty much with like a lot of stuff, like musically, like I introduced him to a lot of stuff, and then like skateboarding, because I'm like 6'3", he's like 6'7", So we bought him like this giant Powell, almost like longboard
With the
thing.
roses on it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It was
I
like
remember
30.
that board. Yeah.
Yeah. And we all used to try to skate it, but we thought like that was the best board for him because he was so tall.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was like his first board that he owned.
Yeah.
But he never got into it nearly as much as we did.
Right. Right.
It was like for a short-lived time. But I think he liked being around everybody. He liked the energy of like the adventures we'd go on and
Yeah.
stuff like that. He
And I
always,
remember just like going to shows with him too, because he was so tall, and you and your brother are always just like laughing and
yeah,
smiling, and like I remember when you would take me to shows, and it was like, man, as soon as we would walk in, like everyone, you knew everybody. Like
I
I don't know how you knew everybody, but you
don't
did. Like
either.
I just remember
Yeah,
all these people coming up to you and hugging you and this and that. There was always this energy, and I remember just like standing there and going like, man, I wish I knew people like Dan does, you know. But man, one memory about Dave, man, I'll never forget, you know, because he's such a like big, tall, jolly guy. He can kind of just he could just weave into any situation. But I don't
right.
know if you remember, we went to go see 7 Seconds, I think, at the Babylon a Go Go,
Yeah.
and um, I think there was a guy that just got naked in the
Yes.
pit, like in the
Yeah.
crowd. So this guy's naked, and everyone's kind of like backing away from him. And I think your brother like went and like picked him up or something. Was
Yeah.
like twirling him around. So
He
classic,
did.
man. So just like, all
Yeah.
right, we're gonna have fun, man.
Did they have a song like Get Naked or something like that? Or like,
The tour was called Get Naked tour.
Naked, like with an E. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
still have the tour T-shirt.
Oh
So
my gosh, that's
that's how I know it.
hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I remember that very well.
So
That's so funny.
we're talking the beginnings right now. You know, 88,
Yeah.
89, Garfield Heights. I really one thing I'm so excited to have you on here is just like I've always felt that Garfield Heights and the whole southeast side of Cleveland has always been this kind of unknown zone. Like
Yeah.
we know it well, man. Like Garfield, Bedford, Maple, Warrensville, east side of Cleveland. You know, we know all that, and then going out farther into those suburbs, like
Yeah.
that's what we grew up with. But I find on the bigger picture of Cleveland skateboarding, it's always like people know more. It's either like the west side of Cleveland or the east side of Cleveland. But we come from this weird,
Yeah.
not hip, not cool, weird, just blue collar zone or something.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, well, the East Side had Coventry.
Yeah,
And that was, a very cool spot to be at. Not gonna lie, I went there a lot. Um, and then the West Side had that whole 117th and Detroit area. And there was like Chris's Warp Records and then the Fantasy and whatever other little head shops or whatever were around there. Parma, just by sheer size and mass, had a lot of kids that all knew each other. So
yeah,
like Parma was their own thing. We weren't considered Parma.
no,
The Brecksville kids that I knew that skated, we didn't have money, so we weren't part of their crew.
yeah,
And so we just got it stuck in this weird corner that
yeah,
nobody, yeah, like you said, like nobody really came to. It was like our own little part of the world. And we actually had, and I'm sure a lot of the spots are still there, like a lot of great spots that I think,
amazing spots.
yeah, that people would never even know were there.
In my opinion, like I mean, I've scoured the city over so many times, but that whole southeast side, man, is just packed with spots. I think more so
Yeah.
than probably any other area
I mean, even just Turney Road.
other than downtown Cleveland. Yeah, Turney Road's insane,
Yeah.
you know. But the other thing too is where we were at down in that side of Cleveland, as opposed to the west side or the east side, so far away from any kind of like culture. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
it just was like, you know, Garfield Heights is just so many. I mean, it's crazy. I on my 21st birthday, I went and tried to do a trick at every little dive bar in Garfield
Oh,
Heights.
wow.
It was crazy. Like I don't even think I hit them all. Like
Yeah.
there's so many little bars, and it's like because that town is just it was just like the husbands go to work at either the steel mills or a factory job or some brutal
Yeah.
job, and then come home, and then whatever guys that don't want to go face their family just hid away in one of those those bars, man.
Yeah,
So I feel
100%.
like, having you on here, that's a good voice to like just express what that. I mean, I know it was pretty hard for all skaters back then in the late 80s, early 90s, but man, I don't know. I mean, we had it really good. I think we had a good little crew and we had some good things going. But at the same time, when I tell stories of how often, I don't know if you ever got jumped, but we got jumped.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Oh yeah, a
so
couple
many times.
times.
Because what people don't realize, like Garfield Heights, well, first off, everybody just hated us, period. But we
Right.
also butt right up against that southeast
Cleveland.
side, Cleveland. Like the
Yeah.
Cleveland city limits is like two stop signs down my mom and dad's street, and you're
Right.
there. And you got Warner Road, which is Team Insanity territory, but Warner Road back then was big biker, Hell's Angels,
Redneck.
kind of just gnarly. And then if you
Yeah.
cross the bridge over there, like Broadway 93rd, it's like it's hood, man. It's
Yeah.
gnarly. So they would come in on the weekends and
Yeah.
cruise Turney Road with carloads, just looking for someone to jump, and we were the ones out on the streets every single night.
Yeah. Because you skated more up by like the Boulevard area on the north side there.
Yeah,
So like we didn't get that as much, but we definitely got like we definitely were chased a lot.
yeah,
Had to hide, because they'd be like chasing us in their cars. We'd have to find a place to hide or outrun them or whatever. Um, or even just in school. Like there was a dude that felt like he didn't like us. He saw Marcus and I at the mall at Randall Mall, tried to follow us home. We had a little altercation with him with our vehicle, uh, which I mean, I think we're past the statute of limitation on that. But let's just say he rear-ended us and it was
yeah,
not a good, yeah. But he decided from that day forward that he was going to, make sure that I was terrified every day.
yeah,
And he started like following me home from school until one day I had to like just stand up to him and be like, "Hey, dude, like we're either gonna do this right now or like never or just let it go."
yeah,
And then it just fell apart and he walked away. But that was pretty normal, like to be skating somewhere, have a car ride by and yell skater fags or whatever. Sorry, I don't mean to say that
yeah.
word, but like
That's
that's
hey
what
man,
was
that's
yeah,
what we heard.
that's what we were yelled at
That's what
every
we were
time,
called.
and yeah,
I mean, on Turney Road.
and then have to run.
I mean, and you remember how little I was. I was always a really little
Yeah,
kid. And man, I had grown adults on Turney Road. I remember a grown man threw a half empty beer can out the
yeah,
window as he drove by, and it just whizzed past my head. You know,
wow,
spit on, always people chasing us, and then the cops and all that. Yeah, it was gnarly. I don't know. It just seemed like that's kind of the way it was. And then in school, yeah, same thing. Since I was so little, I was an easy target. You know,
yeah.
but
And I think little by little, as we grew, like the size of our group of friends, like I think that lessened at school a lot. Like we definitely once like I remember, so those that know Cleveland like skateboarding would remember Impet Park on the west side. And I don't know how Marcus and I found out about it, but we got there. We went there and we skated, and one of the best places to skate ever in Cleveland.
yeah,
And we came back. It was a Friday night, and there was a football game going on, and all like the rocker, like the stoner, like metal guys that skated were skating the four stair out in front of the junior high, and that was like Mike Maniszewski, Dave
yeah,
Hoyle, Greg Kroll might have been part of that. There was a couple other, I think Jim Skokulski. Like it was just like this crew of dudes that were like all like long hair, like they were Venom, Slayer, whatever, the
yeah.
whole
They were they were in like
creator.
they were into good metal. You know.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Yeah,
like speed metal and like thrash.
yeah,
But I didn't know that. I didn't know the difference at the time.
yeah,
It just wasn't a thing. But we come walking across the schoolyard, Marcus and I with our skateboards, and they're like, "Hey, you need to come skate with us." And we're like, "What?" We're like, okay." And from that night forward, we were friends with them.
yeah,
And that made our circle bigger,
yeah,
because we already had myself, you, Eric, Anelski, Corey.
yeah,
Uh, trying to think, there was Dave Smith and Sean had moved there
Yeah.
by that point, and there was other peripherals that I didn't know as well. So if I don't remember names, I apologize
Yeah.
because they were quite a bit younger. But like as far as like being in high school or in that environment, like it became a little bit safer,
Yeah.
and I think people were a little more like open to it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, like you're not that weird, right? Like, or they want to just sit there and like tell you why Cinderella was better than like suicidal tendencies. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
that was a lot of my conversations.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so it got better as time went on for sure. But I think about like, I mean, I don't know how much you like. Yeah, I'll let you take over from here. But like, yeah, it definitely got more skater friendly as the numbers grew.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I saw what I thought was one special thing that we had in Garfield Heights at that time in like 88, 89 was you had the let's just call them the skate punks, like me, you,
Right.
Dave Smith. We were kind of into like punk rock and skateboarding and all that. But then there was a whole crew of Garfield skaters that were the metalheads, the guys you
Yes.
just named. Not lame metal, man. They were the guys that turned
No,
us
they liked good
like,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, they were into like, Nuclear Assault and, just Slayer and stuff like that, Sacred Reich or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was cool because I feel like you can look at my music library, and even though I've always flown like the punk rock flag, when you look at it, it's so eclectic. And I think that's why, is because from an early age it was like, um, that influence of those guys got into some of the albums we were into, and we got turned on to
Yeah.
some of the albums they were into, and that was a really cool thing. And then there was just that late 80s, like I always had that vibe of like going to shows of like, the metalheads and the punks, like we were just all together, you know what I mean? Like I never
Yeah.
lived through that division of like metalheads and punks are separate or whatever. That, and then remember we also had an element of like the Garfield hockey players that skated,
Yeah.
like Tom
Uh-huh.
Martin and I can't remember the other names, but Tom Martin's the one that comes to
Didn't one
mind.
of the Klasa brothers, the Mark Klasa,
Mark
or
Colossus skated. There was this whole other crew of guys that were, a bunch of them were hockey players, and
right?
then kind of some of their friends, like this whole other division. And those guys might have just been like listening to like Jimi Hendrix and whatever, but it was cool because when we all came together, it was like this big kind of, mishmash of
Yeah.
people. That was really cool. But then, like, as I think when like 89 was kind of coming to an end, it was a lot of people dropped off. And then I'm back at school and it was pretty brutal. But the one thing, even though it was super brutal, because some of those guys skated in the past, they still would like step in if they saw something. You know what I mean? They'd be like, "Hey, man,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
hey,
We had built out our friend group bigger,
yeah,
and I'd already graduated by then.
yeah, yeah,
So, but I felt like it's like what like you're my sister Leah's age, and then my brother Matt's a year and a half or 2 years younger than you.
yeah,
So like a lot of the guys that you mentioned were like in that zone between your age and his age,
yeah,
where there was like there was a lot. Like when my brother Matt talks about skating in Garfield, like he says names and I'm just like
yeah. I know.
I've maybe heard them once or twice, but
Yeah,
know nothing about them. But there was a big
yeah, yeah. There was a
big
whole nother
group
wave
of
of kids
yeah,
that came behind me, and I still keep in touch with a lot of them. I skate with them a lot, but then there were like more waves that have come
yeah,
over the decades. I don't even know. I find that I always say this, man, and people kind of trip out, but I honestly feel like I felt the change, and I swear, man, it was when after Nirvana came out with the Nevermind album. I swear that's when the tone shifted. It was like we were absolute outcasts, and then when Nirvana hit and was on MTV, all of a sudden I had these guys at school that were telling me yesterday that I was listening to like skater whatever music,
yeah,
skater freak music or whatever.
yeah,
And all of a sudden they're like, "Oh yeah, man, I really like that band Nirvana," or they're wearing a Nirvana shirt, and I was like, "What is happening here?
yeah.
What's
I
happening?"
had I had dudes that weren't like necessarily like mean or violent towards me or anything, but like when they went off to college, and they got exposed to other stuff, they came back and like apologized. I had 3 different people that were a year or 2 older than me apologize, and they were like, I actually like what you like now. Like they were like,
That's cool.
yeah, that was wild. I
That's
was just
cool.
like, okay,
Yeah.
like sorry for picking on you so much.
Yeah. That's cool. So,
Yeah,
so let's fast forward a little bit
sure.
here. I want to touch upon this subject because I think it's a key little moment in my life, but it was also like, you gave us a little, at least you gave me this other little window, right? So I think it was maybe 1992 because you were Mormon. And by the way, all growing up through high school, I remember every time, like, I'm just this little dude calling you all the time to go skate,
Yeah,
right? And you had the car to come pick me up.
yeah.
I would always forget I can't call Dan on Sundays.
Sunday's church. Yeah, yeah,
Sundays was church day. I could never call
yeah,
you. I'd be like, oh man, it's Sunday. I can't call Dan.
yeah.
But I remember after you, I don't know, at some point after you graduated, you had to go do, is it like your mission or
I
whatever?
didn't, yeah, I didn't go on a mission.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what was
Are
it?
you?
Something took you to California, and I thought that's what it
Yeah. So,
was.
okay, I can tell you that. So basically, so my brother and I had a car. Obviously, came and picked you up, and other people, and Corey and Dave, and we started going to Columbus a lot and skating sun sports and stuff like that. And then Eric Anelski, who we went to high school with, moved to Cincinnati. And so we were like super close with him. So we started going down to Cincinnati. Alien Workshop had started. We wanted to skate. Like we were like, we got to go to all of the Alien Workshop spots that are, in the video and
Yeah,
whatever. But we met a lot of great people between Columbus and Cincinnati. But Cincinnati, so Eric had a couple neighbors that skated. One of them was Dave Cato, who still skates in New
yeah,
York.
yeah.
Yeah, Dave and his brother Grant. And then there was Todd and, oh, what was their last name was Toth. And they were from Indiana, but they lived next door to Eric. They had told me that they were going to move to Orange County, and Todd was a really good skater, and they were both actually pretty good. But Scott was his brother's name, his older brother. So they move. I tell Todd, I said I'm going to stay in touch and I'm going to come visit, come on vacation, and knowing well in my head that like once I'm out there, I'm probably going to stay. Like I really wasn't thinking this is going to be a vacation. This is going to be like a let's try to move type
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah, yeah.
So I had money from a car accident that I was in 7th grade, and so I packed up stuff and flew out there, and ended up staying with them in Costa Mesa for almost a year.
Oh,
And yeah, it was like, and that was like 90, 91
wow.
ish. Yeah, so I stayed and so there was 5 of us that lived in the house. I lived under the stairs on a mattress, probably paid like 150 or 200 a month or something like that, ridiculously cheap.
Yeah,
Um, and just met a bunch of people. I met Lucero, uh, and it was funny because there was a Cleveland connection with everybody, with like that whole Black Label Lucero crew.
yeah,
So I didn't really know those guys that well, but I knew them. So just by saying I was from Cleveland, kind of opened, at least like a friendship to things. So I got to know like Skip Pronier, and uh, I think Max Evans was around a bunch too. Justin Ortiz, who was from Cleveland,
mm-hmm.
he was starting to float around there a lot. Uh, and or Justin is from Cleveland, I should say.
Yeah,
He's not
yeah.
was. He's still there. And and so there was just all these kind of connections that started happening. And then eventually when I was running out of money, I never really got a job. My sister was getting married, so I was like, well, I'll just head home. And so I packed up my stuff. My roommate drove me to the train station in LA. And it was funny, the day I went to the train station to go up to San Francisco to my cousin's house, I met Karma Toshev at the LA train station,
Awesome.
totally random. I'm like, that's Karma Toshev, that's like tripping. So, and then I take the train up to San Fran. I went to like EMB, and it rained the whole time I was there, so I didn't really get to skate, but I did meet, and if Pontus Alva, if you're listening to this, I think we met and went to a warehouse and skated a mini ramp that you either lived at or were friends with.
Wow.
Almost
I didn't realize
100%.
Pontus was around
He
back
was
that
around it,
far
yeah,
back.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. We're
Interesting.
like close to the same age. So then I ended up coming back to Cleveland, and then that's when we, came back and got reunited, in like our thing.
Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know you were gone that long. Well,
yeah.
so
It was like 8, 9 months.
wow. Well, my little piece of that story comes in where you come back to town, and I remember this had to be '92. I feel like we were at Southgate Mall over
Mm-hmm.
there in Maple
It was
Heights,
winter. It was kind of
Maple
cold.
Bedford area. Yep. And we had these little gaps there. They were super cool, and I feel like I was probably trying to pressure flip them at the time, you know. And I
Yeah.
remember you hadn't seen me in a long time. We hadn't skated together in a long time because you were gone, and you made this little passing remark of like something, I don't know, something to the effect of like, oh man, like you've gotten really good. You ever think about getting sponsored? Like you said something like that, probably just in passing or whatever.
Right.
But that, and I know I've told you this story before, but I want everyone else to hear this story. That when you said that, that was the first moment in my life where it, like, it just, that had never, that had never, that stuff didn't occur to any
None
of
of
us
us,
in
none
Cleveland,
of us
man.
thought about that.
No, no,
Yeah.
no, no, no. That was no, that didn't happen for us. But I remember you saying that, and I was just like, I never thought of myself as being like anywhere in that realm or anything, but because you came back and you were just like telling me, oh, I skated with Sean Sheffy, I skated with this guy and that guy, and 17-year-old me was just like, oh my, like my mind was just getting blown. I couldn't believe that you skated with these
Right.
guys. So then I felt like, well, he must know what he's talking about, you know what I mean? So, but that was the first time in my mind, not that I didn't even act on it, I didn't even try to start acting on anything for a few more years, but that was the first time that just that little thing, that little seed planted in my mind of like, man, maybe, maybe, maybe something's gonna
Yeah.
get worked out. Took a little while to get there, but
Well,
but yeah,
yeah. And I think in general, like, I mean, I was so excited, from that time spent there, like coming back and like it made such an impression on me, and I was so excited to share that with everybody. So like saying like, hey man, like you could do it, like really mean it because you can do it, right?
yeah,
Like,
right,
I think one of the things that like maybe people don't understand if they've never been out there, but like if you've ever like saw a skater that you really like, you're like, man, that skater's amazing, and then they just disappear. Then you just realize that life just happens, right? And not everybody has the same goals, or the right opportunity doesn't come, or whatever. But you got to work hard, and you got to put yourself out there. And
or
and you're
some people don't even care.
right,
Yeah,
right. It's not
which
even
was
on their it's not
which
even
was
on their
baffling to
agenda.
me of like going to California and realize like how many people were way more talented than me, but it's like they didn't care. Like it just wasn't
It wasn't part of
something.
their thing.
No, no. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh my God, I would have given anything to be this close to like
yeah.
things happening. Anyways, go ahead.
No, but no, that's so true. And so it's like with effort and some talent, you could anyone could do it. And I was just so excited to share that. Like let's go.
Yeah,
And you were that kid who just always pushing, always trying harder, always making sure you were out there
yeah, yeah.
putting the work. You put the work in.
Yeah, you were the first one
So
to go to the moon and come back and report to us that the aliens are real. It really exists. It really exists.
yeah,
It was mind blowing to me. So, all right. So yeah. So then you're back in Cleveland. We're going up through the '90s. If I'm skipping something, forgive me, or
no,
just
you're
fill in
fine.
the blanks. But I feel like it seemed like the next big thing that was about to happen for you was the Speak in Tongues Club. Am I right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
fill us on that. Like, so, there might be a lot of older people that are gonna know speak in tongues when you start talking about it. And
yeah,
for all you younger people out there, I mean, this was a real. I mean, and I know we're getting into music now, but back then, and especially in our world, the music and the skateboarding was very interconnected, right? So
100%.
so for this whole speak in tongues DIY place to pop up on Lorraine Avenue, which it's in a spot on Lorraine that probably wasn't like how Lorraine Avenue is now. You know what I mean? So tell us that story.
Yeah. So I had come back from California, and I needed to get a job and stuff like that. My cousin got me a job at a restaurant that's right across from the Chester Commons double set. So I worked in that building right there. Like there's the park, here's the double set, that building right there.
Yeah.
I worked in that building.
Oh wow.
So I was like, I worked in a restaurant there, and across the street there was a grocery store in that like apartment building
In
slash office
Reserve
Reserve
Square.
Square.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So and that's where I met my roommate, my future roommate's mom, Brian Strazak, and I was in there getting lunch or something, and I was telling her that I just moved back from California, needed a place to live, and she goes, oh, she's like, my son's looking for a roommate, blah 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 blah. So we ended up meeting. He worked at the coffee shop in Reserve Square. We met,
Which, by the
hit it
way,
off.
Reserve Square used to be really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there was some nice stuff
it
in
ain't
there.
anymore. It ain't
Okay.
anymore. But Reserve Square back then, man, that was a nice. I used to do deliveries there for the print shop I worked for
Okay.
downtown, and Reserve Square was like you go in there, it was really nice place.
It was like
Now,
law offices and stuff and like
yeah, and
all
they had
kinds.
all that
Yeah.
shopping in there and stuff. It was super
Yeah.
sweet. Yeah, now it's like
Yeah.
just pretty dumpy.
It's probably empty, probably. Who knows?
No, there's people in there. It's just like
Okay.
it ain't a good scene around there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we ended up moving in together over on West 14th in Tremont, and he started a band, and I tried to be the singer for like a hot minute. Didn't really work out. I wasn't really cut out for the style of music or whatever, writing lyrics, anything. But I stuck around, and I just became like the unspoken member of the band, you know.
Yeah.
And excuse me, Brian worked with another guy named Dave Petrovich, Dave P, as y'all call him. And Dave had been living in this old Hungarian Communist Union Hall on Lorraine Avenue. And him and his roommate at the time, Shelby, they had used it as like a speakeasy. So they would, they let their friends come and let their bands practice. They would have like parties and DJs and stuff like that. It wasn't really like necessarily like a venue, but it kind of was in a weird way. It was like a practice space slash venue. Dave and Shelby was moving out. Dave needed to move out because he couldn't afford it by himself. And so Brian and I and two of the other guys one of the guys from the band, Grain, and then our other friend Ryan, the four of us, we decided to move in. And Grain broke up. Kind of people went their separate ways, even though we were kind of still living there. And I had been traveling around Ohio and like the central like Ohio Valley, like West Virginia, Pennsylvania, whatever, Michigan, with the Grain guys so much that I had already kind of started building this network of knowing all the same bands that they would play with. And so when that opportunity kind of popped up, we're like, well, we live here, we want to do shows, and the other guys were kind of like, yeah, we're not really into it. I was like, I am, like, I want to keep doing this. And so it basically kind of fell on my shoulders to like, if it was going to happen, like here's your opportunity to like do this. Like here's like I knew phone numbers, I knew this, I knew that, and then just slowly but surely just one band would call and then it started growing, and then we'd go to like we knew a lot of kids that were really active in the same scene down in Columbus, and they helped us out a bunch because they had their own space as well. And so we just kind of picked up on what everybody else was doing. We're like, hey, if they book that show in Columbus, have them call us. We'll book it in Cleveland, and so that's really where it all kind of took off, and it just was a slow snowball that just kept growing and growing and growing. And um, some people might or may not know this band, but there's a band called Joan of Arc, and the singer, main guy in the band, Tim Kinsella, he from Chicago. He's super like just great dude. He decided, well, he really enjoyed playing our space, so when he went back to Chicago, he told the other bands and a really prominent booking agent there that we were like a like legitimate place to play.
Yeah. But it was
And
but it
so
was like a DIY place,
yeah, so
right?
the whole idea
Like,
was
didn't you
like
guys kind of do this like
yeah,
uh
we had no like permits, no license, no nothing. We had no alcohol license. If you we trusted you if you were over 21, we let you drink. Um, it was like we tried to do like the whole like Discord Ian MacKay thing, like
yeah.
show shouldn't be more than $5. You know, I think the most we ever charged for a show was like eight or 10, I think, or something like that. And the whole time we did it, 12 at the most. But that was like a big show. But like, yeah, you could come like when Modest Mouse was first starting and touring. Like I think that was like $7 or something
Yeah,
like that.
rattle off some of these bands that like people don't like would trip out to think right there on
Yeah.
Lorraine
So
Avenue in this little DIY place years before people, like Modest
yeah,
Mouse
and the
is
crazy thing
playing
was
like
is like
this.
we could hold like 250 people.
Yeah.
So we had space, right? And it was like, and it was looked like a venue. It looked like we had a stage and we had sound equipment and everything like that. And but yeah, I mean, we had obviously Modest Mouse was already mentioned, Murder City Devils, Promise Ring, Get Up Kids, Jimmy Eat World, um, who else? Tortoise, Five Style, The Sea and Cake, Low, David Pajo. Um, I know Jules loved the Delta 72 and the Detroit Cobras.
Hmm.
They were like kind of like rock and roll bands from Detroit and Washington D.C. A lot of stuff that eventually would be kind of like the foundation of like what before pop emo was a thing,
Yeah.
but like there was like a lot of those bands played. So like not too many hardcore shows. It just depended. I kind of stayed away from some of that stuff just because it was just too much chaos
Yeah.
for the venue. But like, I mean, we had shows in there. At least I was booking shows for close to it was almost 5 years, like putting shows
What
on.
were those years you think? Was it like
It was
90s?
like the mid '90s, so '95 ish to right before I moved to California.
Yeah. What about because you're friends with that I thought he played at your place, that Fred Armiston guy, the Saturday Night Live comedian.
So Fred was he was a booking agent out of Chicago.
Okay.
He had played in a band that never played our venue, but he was in a band called Trenchmouth, and he worked for the same age. He worked for Flower Booking, which Tim Kinsella's band was booked through.
Okay.
So Fred booked all like the Promise Rings and all that kind of stuff, like the smaller level bands that were part of Chicago scene and
Yeah.
Flower. So I probably talked to Fred easily 3 4 times a month
Yeah.
with booking shows.
Years before he
Yeah,
became Saturday Night
yeah,
Live
before
guy.
he became Saturday Night Live. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. He was
So
always super fun, super fun to talk to. I
yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's really interesting. Um,
yeah,
hey, I got to go back to one Reserve
yeah.
Square.
Please.
As we were talking, I was thinking about Reserve Square. I'll never forget. It was like the mid '90s, and for all the younger skateboarders out there, let me just tell you, skateboarding downtown in the '90s, late '80s, like early mid '90s, it was, man, lots of guns pulled, knives
Oh
pulled.
yeah,
Like it was pretty sketchy. But we were skating the double set there on it's the park you're talking to. I always call it the Cleveland
yeah,
double set park. The Cleveland double set.
yeah.
Everybody knows that spot. And right there is Reserve Square apartments. And all of a sudden we saw this guy, man. He mugged a lady. There was just like this lady walking down the street with a purse, and this guy just like punched this lady in the mouth,
Ugh.
grabbed her purse, took off, and like we all went running over there. Like a whole mob of us went running over there. A couple of my buddies went chasing the guy, and he just like slipped away into the night. Just
Yeah.
a couple turns, and he was gone.
Yeah.
And I remember we had to pick up this poor lady's like retainer, got like knocked out of her mouth. Her mouth was bleeding. It was crazy. Anyway, so sorry. I had to
No, you're fine. But like, no, but that was kind of like the norm in the sense that like, you know, I know a lot of people skated public square, but Dave Smith and I got in the habit of going there late at night.
Yeah, you guys would go there.
We'd show up at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, Dave would hit me up like, you want to go skate? I'm like, I have to work in the morning. And you guys would skate till like 3, 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And no, it was just funny because I just remember, like, you want to talk about like crazy, like where it was me, Corey, Dave Smith, Chris Hill may have been with us, I'm not sure. But I just remember I'm standing on like, I guess it'd be like the northwest corner of Public Square where the Moses Cleveland statue is, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I see Corey in the middle of the street, like he's doing some flat ground stuff, and I see this car come barreling up because it's a one-way street. It's flying fast. And I'm just like, Corey, get out of the street, get out of the street. He's like, what? I'm like, get out of the street. Like, you know, like, and he finally like reacts to what I'm saying and moves, and this car just comes flying in, and if you know, it's like a square, it's literally a square, cuts that corner so fast, skids on all 4 tires, pops up the curb onto the sidewalk, and smashes into a telephone pole or a light pole. The pole falls on the center of the car and creates this like big V-shaped dent with the guy, and the guy's just sitting in the front seat, and he's like half conscious, half whatever. We're like, what is happening? And this woman who happened to be walking by, she comes up and she like knocks on the car. She's like, you okay? You okay? And the guy's just like, like making noise. And she starts tripping out. She's like, oh my God. So all the people from that John Q steakhouse or whatever came running out. And they were like, are you guys okay? Like, we saw that whole thing happen. And we're like, yeah, we're fine. And they're like, man, we watch you guys skate every night. We're so glad you're not hurt, blah, 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 blah. We were like, dude, we were like, Corey was like this close to be like taken out by this guy. And so what had happened was, because there was that hotel over there by the fountain park that's right over on the northeast side, he had, when a valet came up, this dude just jumped in the car as it was being valeted and just took off down whatever street that is there, and like was trying to steal the car. Yeah, that was wild. Yeah. And then the amount of homeless people we met, and like, met so many people.
Wow. All right, so let's move forward. Now we're creeping up to the where things really pick up steam for you. So, 98, I leave Cleveland to move out to San Diego, to Oceanside.
Okay.
And then by the next year, 99, I talked Dave Smith into quitting his job at Dandy Potato Chips.
Yeah.
And Dave Smith, old Garfield skater, to move out with me. So we're doing that. Dave starts at, I can't remember if Dave started at Transworld.
He was shipping at Transworld.
Shipping at Transworld.
Yeah, he worked with Hodge.
Yeah, then he got moved over to Tracker, right? Across the street.
Yes.
Tracker Trucks. Working there. And then it had to be at some point in 2001, I remember Dave going, what do you think about Santovin moving in with us? I was like, yeah, because we had that awesome apartment in Oceanside by the beach, a massive 2-bedroom where we could, our living room was so big that Dave made walls out of cardboard, but he made them to look like castle walls, and he had a little drawbridge to like go into. And so he had a bedroom in there, and that apartment was. I was just telling someone about this. This apartment, right? Like I could literally hear the waves from my bed.
Yes.
So this is
Yeah.
2001, and we were paying $900 a month for that apartment. And at the time,
Okay.
we had 3 people living there. We split it 3 ways. We're paying
Yeah.
$300 a month to live next to the
Yeah.
Pacific Ocean. It was insane. It was insane. But anyways, I remember Dave saying, "What do you think about Santoven moving in with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome." And then
Yeah.
so you came out, and then yeah, things started to just roll, man. Like,
Yeah, because you were kind of getting ready to move out,
yeah,
and then and Chip was like with us as
Chip was
well, and
here. Chip
Chip was like
Chip Meek,
Chip lives
another
here in
yeah.
Phoenix.
So for all you people out there that don't know, Chip Meek was another Garfield skater that I got to move out there with me. Moved with me. He lived with us for like a year out there. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, and Dave had just got that job at Giant to be the new DLT manager.
So
So
did Dave
so
go from
Dave,
Tracker to Giant to
yes,
be team
and
manager for like New Deal and Pop War, right? Am I
yes,
right? Okay.
yeah, and
Yeah.
so that's when I got the call. My job is opening up at Climax, which was Tracker, Orion, Neighborhood, and Stamina, and uh, and Stamina was a clothing company started by Julio de la Cruz.
Julio de la Cruz.
Yeah, and so I flew out to meet Linda and Buddy
Linda
and
Prettyman and Buddy
Larry.
Carr. Buddy
Yeah,
Carr's an
yeah,
old Ohio skateboarder from Dayton.
from Dayton.
He used to
Yep,
ride for Alva.
yep.
Yep.
So they were like kind of running Tracker and all that, and so Dave was like, yeah, this is had it set up so I could interview with them for the job as team manager. And I remember I flew out. It was like an October or something like that. And it was funny because Jordan Hoffert was actually staying with Dave at the time.
Oh my God.
At the house,
Wait,
at the apartments.
yeah, I
Yeah,
remember Jordan used to come. He was a little kid. He'd
stay
come
all the
crash at our
time.
apartment.
Yep.
Which
So
side note isn't? I just was out in California last weekend. I had a video premiere for
yeah, Black
the
Plague.
my videos that just came out, and we did them at Black Plague Brewery, which is Jordan Hoffert.
Yeah,
And now he's all grown up. He's a full man business owner.
got
Anyways, okay,
kids and yeah,
yeah.
crazy,
All
right?
right, keep going.
So Jordan was there, and so I come out and interview, and they're like, okay, well, we'll let you know like soon if what we're gonna do. If they didn't tell me yes or no or whatever. So I go back to Cleveland, just fingers crossed, just like this has gotta happen. Like I want this to happen so bad. Then I finally got the call. It was like right before Christmas, and they were like, "Can you be here like the first of the year, basically?" So I packed up my stuff. Had been living with my sister off of Denison or something like that, and packed up and came out and started as the team manager for Trackers, 16 skateboards, Orion trucks, and Neighborhood Stamina.
Yeah,
Just
and
thrown right in the deep end.
and became a new person known as Tracker Dan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got lucky because people were like first going to call me Climax Dan because of Climax distribution.
No, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all my business cards said Climax Manufacturing, Dan Santoven, right? And I remember being at an airport, and they, when you rent a car, sometimes they want to see your business card if you said you were there working. So I hand her my business card and my license, and the girl just looks at me and she's like, I can just see the look in her face of like, what does this guy do?
Uh,
And I was like, and I just, it is totally calm voice. I'm like, yeah, animal husbandry. We're really successful or something like that. And she just looks at me and I was like, I'm joking. Like it was so,
oh man.
but that's the kind of look you get when you'd say like Climax Manufacturing. So thank God Tracker Dan,
Tracker Dan stuck.
what won the day on
That
that whole
stuck.
thing.
That
So
stuck.
yeah,
Dude,
yeah.
that just reminded me. I gotta tell this story because it involves car rental and a
Uh-huh.
confusing name and Dave Smith. Since we're on the
Oh
subject of us
God, yeah.
all living together in an apartment,
Yeah.
I was somewhere on the road with Dave Smith. I don't know if we were. I don't know. We were somewhere on tour, or maybe it was Tampa or something. and Dave Smith at the time was working for iPath. Dave became the
Okay.
iPath team manager, and so I was with him, and he went to go rent the car, and he goes to give him his name, and he's like he's Dave Smith or whatever, and they're looking it up, and you know how the a lot of times they're booked under like the company you work for,
Right.
and so the big oil company, ConocoPhillips,
Yeah.
ConocoPhillips.
Yeah.
I'll never forget the lady looks up at Dave, and Dave is probably like hungover. I'm just picturing Dave, like hair probably messy and just like barely hanging on. And the lady
Yeah.
goes, ConocoPhillips? And he goes, no, Dave Smith. He thought the lady thought his name was ConocoPhillips.
ConocoPhillips.
And I was dying. I was dying laughing.
Oh my gosh.
And like I started calling him Conoco like for years. I just
Nice.
like, hey, what's up, Conoco?
Nice.
Anyway, sorry,
That's
man.
so good. No, that's great.
Let's
That's
get back
great.
on track here. Back on track. So, yeah, man. So you become Tracker Dan, and it's on, man. Like you just started doing a ton.
Yeah. Yeah. So what kind of opened the door from there? So like, obviously Tracker Trucks was kind of on its like last days, of like, being like a maybe respected brand in the industry, right? Yeah, competitive and respected. And so, but 16 was still having a lot of fun because it was like the whole premise, when Dave Berchtold started it was you're kind of like a farm league for invisible, so it's kids under 16. So
Yeah.
I had this opportunity to like work with these young kids and build this kind of like team up out of like nothing really because
Yeah.
everybody had kind of already moved on. Jordan was just turning 16, Jordan Hoffert, so he was moving on. Marissa Del Sano was already getting flowed from us. Uh, so I ended up bringing on uh, Slash, Brian Hansen,
Yeah.
Chris Troy,
Yeah.
Garrett Hill, Mark Gutterman, who had already kind of been on, but was like finishing up, kind of like turning in that age group,
Yeah.
and Lindsay Hawkins and her brother.
Yep.
Trying to think if there was anybody else, but it was like a small group. But that kind of became like my marketing focus, like
Yeah.
because I knew I could do a lot, and it wasn't gonna like
Yeah. Yeah.
I could do it locally, I could create stuff, and then I
Yeah.
started like reaching out and like giving Tracker Trucks to like other kids that worked at Surf Ride, and that was like Kenny Hoyle, Andy Beaumarchais, like all these other kind of like North County like people that everybody was like, these kids are good, they're going to be the next pro type thing.
Right.
And then I decided to then opened up the Etnies Park in Lake Forest. So I took the 15 passenger van from Tracker, put the seats back in it, and every Tuesday we'd load it
I
up
remember that.
with all the
I remember
dudes
every
and
week
like
you guys would be driving up there.
drive up to,
Yep.
to Etnies
Yeah.
Park. And so we had I mean it got wild. Like I mean like at first it was just the North County kids, then before you know it I have Wes Kramer, Tyler Surrey, what's the other, all the Skate Mafia kids in the car,
Yeah.
like going up to skate Etnies.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had Tom Remellard and Neil Headings one night, going up there. I had dudes from Transworld. Rob Brink was always meeting us there. Like he already lived up that way, so we'd meet him up there. But Adam Sullivan and Blair Alley, everybody wanted to ride. Mike Fitz, yeah, everybody was like, yeah, can we get in? Can we get in? I always tried to save the seat for the kids, but we always made room for
I remember
other
that. I remember
people
that.
to get
I
in.
remember that being a thing.
Yeah.
Your van trips up to there. 16 skateboards, man. People don't realize how many people came out of that. I remember before you came on to doing 16. When I was living out there already, Bergethold was running it, and then Rodney
Johnson
was running it, and Brian Young was still involved. I remember skating with Spanky when he was a really little kid. Spanky,
super tiny.
Never think that he would go on to be this big,
Spanky.
well-known skateboarder, right? Yeah, I was like, Spanky.
Yeah.
Okay, he's just this cute little kid with a cute little name, right?
Right.
But yeah, it's interesting. So the other thing that's really cool for all you Clevelanders out there to just really like, I always think how interesting it is that in our apartment at that time, in the year 2001, 2001 into early 2002, you had me in one bedroom, and I'm doing my Black Label thing and doing the whole pro skateboard thing. You and Garfield Heights kid, East
Yeah.
90th. Then you got Dave Smith, Garfield Heights kid, from what was it?
Manaway originally.
Originally from Manaway, but then moved to Garfield, and he.
They were like, where did they live? They were like one something ish.
I can't, why am I don't know.
I
I'm
don't remember
shocked
his
I cannot
address.
remember the name of the street, but I know the house. Anyways,
Yeah, I
Dave
know the house
Smith,
too.
Garfield skater, is now at this point the team manager for New Deal and Pop War and all that stuff. Then you've got yourself, another Garfield skater that is the team
Right.
manager for Tracker and all this stuff, right? Under one roof, you've got 3 Garfield Heights skaters like doing a lot, man. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of a trip. Like people don't really realize that. Like
No,
Garfield
it's-
Heights has played some heavy roles in the global skateboard community, and I don't think a lot of Clevelanders really know that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is because, you had met a lot of people before you moved. You had kind of branched out into like the more established groups of people, so they knew who you were, like in Cleveland. I was definitely known for the club, but I wasn't really known for skating. Like people knew that I skated, but I wasn't like known as a skate. Like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you were, I was like good enough, but never good enough. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Yeah.
and so like, but like I think, but because of the venue, that definitely put me in front of people. But like, so I think like, yeah, people didn't really just know who we were.
Yeah.
We were already like moved on to doing our thing,
Yeah.
and
Well,
and
and we were like these south again, man. Garfield Heights. We're from like that weird part of Cleveland. Nobody goes to. Nobody really cares. There's nothing cool there. Whatever. That's
Yeah.
where we were all from, And
yeah,
and we all ended up doing these things in California in the skateboard world. Just so
Yeah.
so bizarre.
it's still a trip to think about.
Yeah, it really is. And I'm probably forgetting. There's so many other names that come along with that. Like all of our friends, Chip Meek, Garfield skater, crashed with us for a year, and there's so many other skaters that we like pulled out, and then there's the girlfriends that came along, and what I mean. It's just like this multiplying thing, And I've said this somewhere, maybe on another podcast or I don't know, but in the older generation than me of Cleveland skate group, they would always refer to. Well, I remember Lucero saying like they would refer to Huntington Beach as Little Cleveland, right? Because there were so many of those the older generation of Cleveland skaters that were always going out and hanging out with John or Ricky Barnes, because Karji lived out there. Karji is a guy that's did a run in Cleveland, but I think he's from somewhere else. I forget the whole story, but ends up becoming Lucero's good friend, and that was the connection, right? But I'll say, man, when I really sit down and count the numbers and think about all the people that actually went on to do things like on a global level, working for companies, well, pro skaters, sponsor skaters, whatever, on a global scale, I think Garfield Heights has it beat, man. Garfield Heights, like in North County, like I would say North County, San Diego was the biggest Little Cleveland. It was the biggest for sure.
Yeah,
and a lot of that had to do with Garfield, us Garfield.
Yeah,
kids.
or just like the I would say the sphere of influence.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like how what we were involved with got spread out around the world. Like throughout the skate community.
Yeah. I mean, what you were doing as a team manager, I mean, that went global. You were making decisions that were going out in magazines and videos on a global level.
Yeah.
You're touring the country, you're doing this, you're doing that. Yeah, it's really a trip. Like there was one day a long time ago, I sat down and wrote like every name out, like
Oh wow.
starting with me. Like, all right, I came out, then Dave Smith came out, and then this person and that person and
Shit.
this dude's girlfriend and my girlfriend and his girlfriend and it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a big list, and it was
Yeah.
all in North County, San Diego, all in like
Wow.
Oceanside, Carlsbad, San Marcos Vista, all that
Yeah.
whole Encinitas, that whole area. Primarily Oceanside was our hub,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
still is my hub. But yeah, we had a really cool thing, and then our awesome apartment all blew up because it was my fault because I had to go buy a house. Remember that? You moved out. We had this great apartment by the beach, but I was like at that point, I was like, you know,
Well,
the black label
yeah. I
thing
mean,
was
like, but
doing
you guys
good.
all, yeah, you guys, like, Dave was moving to Orange County,
Yeah,
so he could do, like, he was staying up there with Jamie and Brandon, and so he was kind of like transitioning back and forth. And then you had moved out, and then I was just kind of like,
and
or
Chip
you were in the
and
process of moving out there. Chip was coming with
Chip
you,
went with me and rented a room in my house. Yeah,
right? And I was like, I don't know anybody here. Because I had literally just moved there. So
yeah,
luckily, I had met Rod James
yeah.
at trade show, and he introduced me to John Torsha, and that's how I ended up living in San Marcos.
Rod
And then,
James. If anybody out there has heard of Finesse Skateboards, that's Rod James and his twin brother Steve James, and
yeah,
Steve also is the
there's Tech
guy
Deck.
that really everything you see of Tech Deck. That's Steve James. He does all the artwork layout. He's the guy that picks the companies. He picks the artwork. That's
Yeah.
Steve James. Yeah. So
Yeah,
anyway,
twin
sorry.
brothers from Virginia.
Yep.
No, they're great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so Rod kind of opened the door, and it was funny because after living with John and another guy named Marlon, uh, William Prokop comes and lives with me.
Another
He's
Cleveland
another
skateboarder.
West Side Cleveland
Yep.
skateboarder.
North Olmsted.
Dave Smith comes back and lives with us in
That's
San
right.
Marcos, and Mike Larkey comes and lives with us too.
Mike Larkey.
Another Cleveland skateboarder, right?
Yep.
And so so all of a sudden the house that I end up moving into in San Marcos becomes like a another Cleveland house in a weird way,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know? Yeah,
totally. And then
yeah,
I think that was the same house that I was talking about this with Eric Vicarone. That when Bill Prokop, when he was working at Osiris, he was the person trying to get Vicarone in, and
yeah.
Vicarone I think came and crashed on your guys' couch for a
He did.
while.
He
Yeah,
did
yeah,
stay with
yeah,
it. Yeah. Well, he came out once by himself, and then another time with his mom and his brother.
yeah.
So yeah. So I was always yeah.
Yeah, and I have to tell another story about 16 skateboards that relates to Cleveland.
Sure.
Is this predates your time there, but that 16 skateboards I got I got Greg Tarkey hooked up with riding
Oh
for
wow.
16. Greg Tarkey's in that 16 video, I Hate Children. He's in
Nice.
that video.
I think I remember that. I think I
Yeah,
remember
and Greg
knowing
Tarkey,
that.
I could be wrong, but I was already living in California at this point, and I don't know why I got hit up by this kid through I don't know. I don't remember how it happened, but I somehow got in contact with this kid from Cleveland. His name's Greg Tarkey. He was a young kid. He's trying to make things happen, so I wanted to help this kid, and the best of my knowledge, I could be wrong, but he was the first person to ever ollie over the Central Howard Bank after me. He did it.
Okay.
He did it like,
Nice.
I did it in like whatever, 96, 97, and then yeah, he got like he was just a kid like, you know, all psyched
Yeah.
on all in gaps, and he went and ollied Central Howard. And I think that's what was the big thing of like, oh my God, this is so rad. There's this little kid in Cleveland just like he did the Central Ollie, and then
Yeah.
I knew everybody there, and then he ended up getting on the team. I think he
Rad.
aged out though. I think it was like one of those weird things. Like you
Probably.
hit 16, you're like, well, what do we do now? Like,
Yeah.
But anyways, I had to tell that story for Cleveland skateboarding history's sake. That
No,
connection
for
there.
sure.
Yeah. So all right. So then what? Where to go, man?
So that taking everybody up to Etnies Park, I met a guy named Brian Cook, and at the time that I met Brian, he was repping iPath in Orange County, the original iPath, and then he got hired by Vans to be their Orange County sales rep, and he always skated with us as well, and they were like, we're hiring this new position. It's going to be a visual merchandiser. So if you don't know what that means, it means like you work with core retailers to make sure that your brand stands out within that store.
Yeah.
So any Vans display or a window display or whatever was usually handled by either a rep or a merchandiser type person.
Yeah.
But they also wanted to do this whole thing where they were going to have more of an event staff as well. Like you could throw like small like regional contests or events or things like that. And so when the job opened up, Brian went to the sales manager at Vans and was like, hey, like I got this guy who'd be like perfect for it. He's already working with a bunch of kids. He knows everybody down there. And then I got a call to go interview with Vans. And then so I got hired on as Vans' first visual merchandiser.
Wow, that's cool.
And yeah, so they had two guys, Ruben and Chris Beasley. They worked in the office and they created all of like the visual stuff. And I went and visited shops from, like you said earlier, from the border of San Diego, Mexico, all the way up to San Luis Obispo, out to Arizona, Utah in the winter, Hawaii for surf and skate. Yeah, so they sent me all over. I mean, I within that like little over 2 years that I worked with them, or close to 2 years, I literally probably met every shop owner in that whole region at least once, if not twice. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So that just opened up. You know, you become someone that everybody knows. You're that guy.
Yeah.
You know, and I could give people shoes. I could throw events. I could, you know, and it was really fun too. And Dave Smith had become the Vans team manager when I was working there.
Oh, I didn't know that overlapped.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, we overlapped. So we had a lot of Vans pros
come and stay. Or I probably knew that, I just forgot.
Yeah, so Dave had a lot of pros come stay with us. And so I kind of became friends with them too. And before you know it, like, I'm doing an event at this thing. Who's local to that area? Okay, let's get a hold of them. And before you know it, like, oh, Johnny Layton's coming over, or, you know, John Goman, or whomever, right? Like Van Wastel.
Yeah.
So it gave me all this access to people that I never would have had access to because of Dave.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
What a trip, man. Okay, so Vans, that was awesome. Then what happened?
Super good.
What came after?
So
Vans?
Audio offered me a job to basically do what I had been doing with Vans, and so I took the job with Audio, which was it was positive and negative. Audio wasn't really like caught up in the shoe game. They hadn't vulcanized their shoes yet.
Oh yeah.
They were still kind of living in the past.
Yeah.
And they had good intentions, but not really the plan to do it, how to get out farther. Yeah. And so, but I did get to work with some great people. I worked with Jeff Taylor. I got to meet everybody on the team, Kenny Anderson, Roger Bagley, Steve Nesser, Bam Margera, Tony Hawk, like you name it, like got to know all those guys. And because they were regulars. And then Chris Miller, who I'm a huge fan of, his office was like right behind my desk. So whenever Chris came to the office, I got to see Chris Miller like almost every day.
Yeah. Which
just to this day, I always be like, I just laugh. I'd be like, I'm sitting like 20 feet away from Chris Miller.
Yeah.
Like just tripped out, you know, like this is crazy.
Yeah.
But and then we had.
Remember that time you were skating in front of Marcus Romano's house on your Nautis trying to do stalls? Remember
right.
that?
Yeah.
Now you're sitting across from Chris Miller.
Yeah, and like it was crazy because we had a skate park, and then Jeff Taylor was like, we're going to make it the best skate park. So we expanded the skate park and put in a bowl.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
and then we started like opening the skate park, and me and Mario Miller, who's
Yes.
another Cleveland
Cleveland,
skater,
Grafton, Ohio, to be exact.
right?
But
Yeah,
Cleveland skater Mario
right.
Miller. Yeah.
Yeah, so we end up basically having the keys to the warehouse.
Yeah. That was another kid
So
that I got him to move out. Like I knew
to
Mario
California.
when he was a teenager, and I remember him coming out to visit me when he was like 16 years old or something, and
Yeah,
he was so ready to like move on with his life. And I remember sitting with him at like a fast food place in Orange County, and I was like, maybe I was taking him to the airport or something. I was like, I can't believe you have to go back to Ohio and like go to high school, because
yeah,
he just hung with us so well, and he was very mature for his age.
yeah,
And it was just like, I was like, God, I just feel like you should be out here and with us and starting your life. But he had to go back and do another year of high school, and then
yeah.
after high school he came out, and he either moved in with me or I got him hooked up living with Dave Bergethold or something. I don't know. But yeah, Mario Miller,
Yeah, I'm not sure he lived with.
you could probably, I think he's probably like in like maybe one of Larky's old videos, like Where the Fun Begins or Focus or
Yeah,
something like
one of
that.
those two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
yeah. So me and Mario and I were like Mario was like an assistant team manager. I was a marketing guy. We had access keys to the kingdom. So before you know it, everybody's in San Diego and then some are like, can we come skate? Can we come skate? So I started basically what I was doing at the Edney's Park, but at audio.
Yeah.
So everybody started coming to skate, and we'd open it
I
up,
was
and I
there.
would,
I
you
was
would
there.
come, Dave would come, William would come, but I'd get calls like I'd be leaving work, and I'd be like, it's Mike Sinclair, like, hey Dan, we're gonna come. Chris Cole's in town. Can we come skate tonight? What time you want to be there? 7 o'clock, perfect. And whoever came through town, we'd set it up so they could skate, and
Yeah.
but we just had a regular thing where people started coming and just
Yeah.
keep expanding the influence, and also providing an opportunity to people have to have fun and be friends, and
Yeah.
you know,
That was a great spot. I sometimes forget
yeah,
about that park, but that was fun.
that was a great park.
So you did that. How long did you do that with audio for?
Almost the same, a little bit, about the same amount of time I was at Vans, so about like a little right around 2 years ish,
Yeah, yeah.
and then that our audio closed.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of like a free agent. I took some time off. I didn't really do anything, and then kind of found my way back into sales, which I didn't really care for as much, but it was some way to try to make money. And then I was working. So Jeff Taylor, who was the marketing director at Audio, he always had like his hands in all these. They call him Dark Man for a reason because he could like make things happen that you didn't know would happen. So he called me up like right after audio kind of ended, and he's like, hey, he's like, you have a lot of experience with music, right? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, do you want to go on tour with Angels and Airwaves? And that's Tom DeLonge from Blink 182. And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's go. So I ended up doing a summer on the road on the Warped Tour with Angels and Airwaves, and I did marketing for the band on the road. And then I came back, and that opened a door to help with Tony Hawk Foundation events, which became the Skate Park Foundation or whatever. I think that's what it's called now.
Yeah.
And so I started doing like fundraisers and little like private trade shows events with the Tony Hawk Foundation, and then I got invited to go on 2 of their summer tours. Like you said earlier, I did an East Coast and a
Yeah.
West Coast tour.
Yeah.
And so
Was
if you've never been,
was Mickey Vukovic already there when you were there?
yeah, Mickey was still there.
Cool.
Yeah. So, but like if you've never been to like a Tony Hawk event, like it's never just skateboarding. It's like a whole. You basically are bringing the circus to town.
Yeah.
And so there's like all these vendors that sponsor the tour. So the first summer I helped run one of the vendor tents. Then the next tour I was in charge of all the vendors and made sure that they were like doing their thing on the road. And so got to hang out with the Birdhouse team like that whole summer, like a big chunk of that summer and stuff like that. So, and then after that I ended up um, I ended up kind of like skateboarding. I thought was like pretty much done, and I ended up moving to Arizona, and that's how I ended up out here working in wilderness behavioral health. And for those that don't know what that is, you basically like are working with at-risk teens and young adults, and we guide them in the backcountry
Yeah.
for basically like 2 months straight.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we would get breaks. We'd come home and go back and forth. But yeah, so for about 7.5, 8 years, I had been like working with like at-risk youth, like working in the backcountry, teaching skills like making fire with sticks and living off the land, basically, like how to survive, like anything you'd see on any one of those like Alone or
Yeah. Yeah.
shows like that. Yeah.
Wow.
But that was kind of an interesting thing because I got introduced to this community of primitive skills people, and it was they held this big event in southern Arizona every spring called Winter Count, and so I go to the event, and I'm doing my thing, and all of a sudden this white van rolls in, and it's got Element branding all over it, and I'm like, well, that's crazy. I'm like, what is Element Skateboards doing at this skills event? And two guys that end up becoming two of my good friends, Todd Larson and Mike Kirshner, had started a group called Elemental Awareness, which basically was teaching the exact same skills that I knew, but up at the old YMCA skate camp, which if you go back and watch early skateboard videos like 8th Street and stuff like that,
Yeah.
was like a pretty big thing.
Hocus Pocus. There's a whole section of it in the Hocus Pocus video. Yeah.
Is my landlord's trimmer bothering? Is it
Pretty
making a
loud.
sound? Yeah, we can pause. Let's pause for a second and we'll come back.
Is he right there?
Yeah, he's literally right behind my door right now.
All right. Well, we'll just.
I knew something. I knew he'd either do something like this or knock on the door because that's just my luck with how that goes.
It's not that big of a deal. It's not like we're putting on a big TV production here or something. Yeah.
I know.
If anybody out there, if it's bothering you, it's Dan's landlord trimming the bushes or something.
He's trimming the edges.
Yeah, making them edges sharp.
Making us very Parma.
Yeah.
But
So go ahead.
So I got to end up I met those guys. I stayed in touch with them. The next year they invited me to come and work at skate camp and be a teacher with Elemental Awareness. So I got to attend skate camp 7 times, as like 5 or 6 of them as a teacher and 2 of them as like a leader. And but because we had our own kind of dedicated space there for our activities, we had a lot of the visiting pros and whatever.
Yeah.
We became their touch point for and I already knew people in the industry. I knew like the people at Element. So we had like Young Nija, we had all kinds of people, and then but then I got to actually help pick the groups that came.
Yeah.
So we had like Paul Peralta, Real or Deluxe, Creature, Santa Cruz, Bones Wheels, and that all I got to like kind of orchestrate all those relationships and invite all those people to camp. And then you got to come.
Yeah, while
we
you're
did
there.
Our family camp, yeah.
Yeah, I used to go there a bunch in my early days out there, like when I rode for Invisible, because Dave Bergethold was, entrenched into that camp. So I would go up a lot with the Invisible team, and then even after I turned pro for Black Label, I still was always skating and hanging with Dave Bergethold and Laban. So every time they were going up, I was always going up there. So I used to go up there a lot, and then there was years where I never went, and then that we got in touch, and I brought my whole family out to the family skate camp, and then I went out the year after that. I want to get my kids back there. It's for any of you out there that aren't sure of what we're talking about. This skate camp, it's the I think they call it the Visalia skate camp.
The Visalia YMCA, yeah.
Yeah, in the Sequoias, right? And
in
the Sequoia National Park or Sequoia National Forest in California, and for any of you old timers out there, it's that skate camp by the lake in the 8th Street Hocus Pocus video where it's all slow mo. The music is actually a band called Figure Ground from Youngstown, Ohio. Little fun fact there.
Hmm.
And then maybe younger people, I'm sure, have seen it. You know, anytime you would see clips of like, um, most notable is, you know, going off of a launch ramp into a lake off the end of a dock. That's
Yeah.
that's that skate camp.
When Nike came out a couple years ago, they did a edit kind of honoring that 8th Street
Oh,
part
really?
with Mason Silva, Guy Mariano,
Cool.
and Blake Carpenter.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was super
Yeah.
cool.
And by the way,
Yeah.
in my opinion, if any of you listeners out there ever want to go to a really great skateboard camp, you've got to go there, man. In my opinion,
Yeah.
that is the best skate camp in the world. You're up in the sequoias. It's pretty raw, but man, it's like not only are you in the most beautiful environment, but it's a really laid back atmosphere. And then there's all the history there. You know, you
Yeah,
skate that.
it's not a place you go to train to be a
No,
skateboarder. You
no.
go there to see what you're all about in life. Like you're sitting around a campfire laughing, telling stories. There's funny skits, there's songs, there's like crazy activities that you'd never think you'd be doing, and you're standing in the middle of this like in a big circle with all these other kids, and you're playing like a version of rock paper scissors with
Yeah.
200 people, and you're just having a blast. You're
So
just
fun, man.
laughing, and
It's so
yeah,
fun.
super super fun.
It's so fun, man. It's such a great
Yeah.
place. Um, all right, and then where has your journey gone
So that's
after that?
kind of been it. Like that was like the last one I after 20. I'm Let me think. When did I turn 50? 20,
Almost 4 years ago.
yeah, almost 4 years ago. So my last, that was my last year up there. And right now, so I've been here in Phoenix, and I'm like not super involved with the skate scene here. I know like the people at the shops. I've known Cowtown and Freedom and Sidewalk for a long time, but like I pretty much skate by myself, or
What about
when my brother
Scott
rolls
Elliott?
through
Isn't
and
he
stuff.
out there?
Scott's out
Yeah.
here. We skated once together. We kind of got different schedules. I was honestly on the like I say on the road, but in the woods.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the time I was here.
Mm.
Um, it's only recently that I decided to like that life wasn't going to work for me. I was like I'm just too old, and I wanted to be home more and have a community around me. So
Yeah.
like I'll just tell you like so a little bit of what I'm trying to do. I've always wanted to have my own skate shop, and I've been working on graphics and pricing boards, and I'm hoping like maybe like hopefully in sometime near future like get some funding to get a batch of boards out and start building up some cash so we can open up a space out here.
Oh man, that would be great.
Yeah,
That would be great.
yeah,
I've told you this before some time ago of I think it was after like the last thing you did in skateboarding. It's just like, man, I mean, I've known you my whole entire skateboard life since I was
yeah.
13 years. I mean, I actually knew you before I was 13. I knew you when I was like 11, 12 years old. But man, just your background and everything you've done and your love and commitment to this weird subculture, you know? And I almost feel like our subculture that like it's a subculture within a subculture, like
Yeah.
the whole skateboarding, music, art, like all of that, it's a subculture kind of because not all skateboarders these days are in that subculture.
No,
You know what I
no,
mean?
not at
And not
all.
all music people are in that
Are in
subculture.
that
It's a
subculture,
very
right?
unique little subculture within the subculture, right?
Yeah.
And you've been such a huge part of it, man. I remember telling you, I'm like, dude, there's something else for you, man. Like you have to do something. There's still like something you need to do. Like there, I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
but the world needs, in my opinion, the world just needs more. Well, let me say this: not the world doesn't need it. Our subculture within a subculture needs more of your kind of people, more of you doing rad stuff. You know what I mean?
Thank you, thank
And
you.
I
I
just
mean,
used the
that's the
word,
hope.
dude and rad in the same paragraph, and I am not proud of that.
Uh,
Oh,
it's all good. And it's like, and I don't know if we're kind of getting close to wrapping up or whatever, but like, Cleveland, for better or for worse, and a lot for the better, has shaped a lot of who I am, and a lot of that started with just not wanting to be there, to be completely honest,
mm-hmm.
and wanting to do more and see more and be more, and like, and I'll say this to the day I die, like there was, like you've even said, like there was people better than me, there was whatever, but like the fact that you went and did it makes it like deserving of everything that you've
Yeah,
accomplished. Just like I kind of laugh because I'm like, well, I skateboard and I do these things, but like, would I sponsor me? No, not in a million years, right? You know what I mean?
yeah,
But do I have fun? Do I enjoy the people and what can create in community? That's like, so if I played a small part in the whole thing, it was never like the intention to be that person, but it
sure,
just by,
yeah,
like you said, like a love, and how can you, like, I don't know, if I get excited about something, I want to share it with people, like, whether it was
absolutely,
music or skating or art or whatever. And there's so many ways to express yourself in this community. And I watched that last Derek Ironwing video from Cleveland, and loved seeing all the spots, old familiar faces. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know you could skate that spot, or
I
like,
know,
I never would even have thought of going there. And that's why I'm excited to see your spot, your video as well, because a couple of people have told me like it's a great homage to where you come from,
oh yes,
and
it is,
so I'm
it is,
excited for that. And I just think like, like, don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of getting outside of your comfort. And if it's hard, it's probably good for you.
yeah,
Like, don't be afraid to like take a couple on the chin. Like,
yep,
you really want to be a sponsored skater, you want to do it. Like, unfortunately, California is still the place to do it,
yeah,
and that's just what it is. So, like, come out and try.
yeah,
Give yourself a year or whatever, and like figure it out. Like, there's so much. I mean, like, there's people that have tried and maybe didn't make it, but they're still here. I know, like, Drew Desort is another Cleveland. He
yeah,
he helps run Baker
yeah,
Distribution, like
yeah.
the Baker Boys.
Yeah. He just texted me the other day, man. He's in
Yeah,
L.A. doing it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
There's always, if you have a love for it and like a desire, like, there's a place for you. And
absolutely.
maybe that is in Cleveland, like making videos or creating a skate club. But oh, that's something we didn't even talk about, was the
Oh,
skate
the
club, which is
skate
funny.
club,
Yeah,
the Garfield Heights High School Skate Club,
yeah. So
1989, right?
there's like, yeah, 1989.
Yeah.
It's my senior year of high school. I In gym class, I noticed that down in the boiler room, where all like the heating, air conditioning was for the high school, there was these perfect cement banks,
I was
and there was a hip,
Yeah.
and I was like, that needs to be skated. So we got permission to somehow skate it, and then they were like, oh, because then the wrestling coach, he used that same room to set up wrestling mats and stuff. So it became this like kind of like two headbutts coming together.
Yeah.
Like, well, you can't use this space because it's there for wrestling. And so they said the only way I could use it is if I started a club. So I got this teacher, Miss San Antonio,
I remember her.
to sign on as our like teacher liaison or whatever,
Yeah.
and she just come down, and I think it was like we only maybe did it like 3-4 times tops,
Yeah.
but we had access to those banks.
Yeah.
A lot of kick turns went down. I
I'm
don't know what else might have been
I'm
done.
sure. As I remember, those banks were pretty kind of gnarly, and
They were
I don't
gnarly.
think any of us had some
They were
really many skills back
we
then.
just weren't good enough to really skate them,
Some
but
kick turning on them.
man, we tried.
Miss San
We
Antonio, there was
definitely
always a
tried.
rumor that I think I even asked her in high school, it was always a rumor that she had a ticket to see the Sex Pistols play
And then they
on that
canceled.
on
Yeah,
that tour. They
that's true.
canceled
Yeah,
on that U.S. tour because
yeah.
they broke up in the '70s.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yep,
fun
that is
fact
true.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, wild. Yeah, the Cleveland, sorry, the Garfield
The
Heights High
Garfield
School
Heights
Skateboard Club.
Skateboard Club.
Wow, what a trip! Did that ever
So,
make it into a yearbook,
I
like a
that's a
photo
great
or something?
question.
Huh.
I don't know, but I did see an old yearbook from the year I graduated, and it's got like me and Tom Barry and I think Marcus, and we're all like
Yes,
super, like all like super punk,
I
like
know that
standing against the
photo.
wall, like yeah, yeah, yeah,
I want to
yeah.
see that photo.
I don't have I was just back in Cleveland in October, and that's when I saw it. I was dying. I was like, I totally forgot about this whole thing.
I gotta find
Talk
that photo.
about from going like being ridiculed and chased and trying to get beat up to like, hey, you're like the front spread of the yearbook.
I know.
Like you literally opened the pages and there we were,
Which, by the way,
like laid out. Like
I made in my graduating year. I made that same photo as well. It was
that's
like
awesome.
myself, Nick Romano, Jen Wojcik, Joan
Yeah, yeah, I
Jankowski. We were
remember
all
that
like the
happening.
whatever. They highlighted
Yeah,
the weird kids or
the
whatever.
creepy
But
kids, the creepy corner.
yeah, I don't know. Anyways, crazy.
So
Well,
funny.
man, what an amazing story. I'm so excited for everybody to hear this. Um, it's just there's just so many. There's just so much packed in there, man.
Yeah,
In those years, there's a lot of roads traveled and people and hands shaken and stories
yeah.
made and
It
all
seems
right out of
longer than
Garfield
it really
Heights.
was, but it's like you said, it's just everything got squished into this bubble,
Yeah,
like right time, right place,
yeah.
just and just going for it,
All
you know?
straight out of Garfield Heights.
Yeah,
To
make it
what
up as you go
two
along.
on Orm Avenue? What, two doors down
Orm Road, yeah.
from Turney Road?
Yep.
What a trip! So crazy.
With my waxed curb and that I
Yeah,
learned how to skate on.
that's amazing. It's so amazing. It's so awesome.
No,
Um, well, that's really great. Is there anything else you want to add to this? Because I think this is a great
I'm just
point to.
I hope to make it back in the hopefully early fall. I know some of the older guys know this that follow me on Instagram and stuff like that, but like, so I got diagnosed with cancer, which
Yes.
is like kind of crazy,
Yeah.
to even imagine, but things seem to be going well,
Good.
and I get healthier every day, and so I'm not out of the woods yet, but like my mom still lives in Garfield Heights as well as my older brother, so I still have some ties back there, and plus
Yeah.
the skate community people I know through speaking tongues
Oh
and
yeah.
through
Yeah.
through skating. So
Yeah.
try to come back, and you know maybe we'll have a party at West Side Skate or something, and just have like a not really a party, just come together, hang
Yeah.
out,
Oh, that'd be
say
great.
hi to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That'd be
I would
awesome.
I would love that. There's
Yeah.
so many people I'd like to meet, so many people I've seen you skate in videos that I've never met, and I'm just like super stoked at like to see like where Cleveland is in skateboarding and like how many rad people are
Dan,
still skating and just killing it,
it's really good
crushing
right
it,
now.
just so good.
It's really good right now. I mean,
Yeah,
it's there's just so many of us older skaters that have stuck around and we're still trying to get what we can and everyone's so nice and awesome.
yeah,
And then there's this whole younger generation that's just so unbelievably good. And what's cool about it is there's such a like cool mutual respect. Remember when we were younger and it's like if like an older person would get scared to come to the skate park because the vibes would just be so heavy from like the
yeah,
younger skaters. It's not like that anymore. Now it's like this
good.
total like come as you are kind of vibe. Like at least that's what I experienced. Like everyone just seems so cool and so nice, no matter the age, no matter like
Yeah,
the musical interests or whatever. Like everyone's just so
yeah,
cool and supportive. And then there's still people cracking open new spots that like Gary Spear hits me up. He's like, Svitak, I found a new spot. Like how do you we've combed that city over for decades. How do you still find
yeah,
a spot? But people are still finding some weird spot that's been down this alley or this road all these years, you know, some weird crusty spot that was built in the 1920s, but we never caught it. And so
Yeah.
they're still cracking open and opening new spots. A young generation is still pushing it, and older generation is pushing it too.
Yeah.
I mean, all my buddies
Yeah.
I'm skating with, like Burkholder, Chuck Sonito, Gary Spear, Phil. I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
They're crushing it at like
Yeah.
around, you know, in the 40s and 50-some-year-olds.
And it's not
Skating
just at the
really good.
parks too.
Not just at
Yeah,
the
like
park.
like everybody at Lakewood or like the downtown. I
Yeah,
know not many people go to the downtown one that much anymore, but seeing oh, there's street footage, and it's like
yeah,
I fell in that weird spot where like I'm as old as the guys that are like the generation before me, but
right.
because I started later, I I'm more in line with like the Vince Franz, the Brian
Yeah,
Burkholders, and you kind of came up, I came down, and we all met in that middle
yeah.
space,
And we were
and
all on the
that's
streets. We weren't,
Chuck and everybody, Gary.
and we were all just really on the streets. We weren't like coming from
Yeah,
Garfield. We weren't like the big. We went to the Berea Rolling Bowl when we had
right.
$5 and a ride to go there. But for the most
Yeah,
part, it was better. It was cheaper for us to either you get your mom and dad's car or we spend the buck whatever to take the RTA down Broadway to Public Square. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So yeah, you grew up on the streets with all of us, like street
yeah,
skating. You know, yeah, yeah. It's really good. The skate community in Cleveland is really great right now.
proud to be from there, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess that's it then, man. I think this
Cool,
is.
man.
If you've got nothing else to say, I think this is a.
No, I'm good, man. I just honored to be a part of something.
Yeah,
I'm grateful. Like my life has just been filled with great gratitude lately,
yeah,
and just to have a little part of history that's cool. It's
yeah.
fun.
It's very cool. Very cool.
So hi to
All right.
everybody I don't ever get to say hi to. So
Say hi to who?
just
Oh,
everybody that I know,
everybody
and
out there. You know all
if
the.
I don't know,
Yeah,
I hope I get to meet you.
they're all watching, man. Well, all right. Well, I guess we'll.
Thank you,
I guess
Christian.
that's it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed listening to this as much as I did doing this. And Dan, again, thank you so much. Love you,
Love you
and
too, man.
make sure you hit me up when you get back here.
That I will.
All right, man. Everybody, stay tuned for the next one, whenever that is. I'm trying to get. I was a little rerouted with other priorities I had going on in my life, but I'm trying to get these podcasts out once a month. So hopefully we'll have another one coming in another month. But all right, everybody, we will see you, or you'll hear us next time. Later.
Nice. Later.